and my head, I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
Hi. So I have a film review that I recently saw. I recently saw Wicked, the new movie. It's in theaters. Based on the Broadway film or play or, whatever. I never actually saw that play in person, certainly not. But this isn't going to be much of a review, but it is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So, that's what I got to do. I got to review it. So after I saw Wicked, this movie about a lady completely covered head to toe with green skin. That's what happened. No, it's just something else I was drinking at the time. With the side effect of a green tongue. Oh, that's good for pleasure. So yeah. Funny sort of camera setup I got here, but whatever. Yeah. Went to see Wicked in theaters. And, certainly is based on a play, that's for sure. Because, singing and dancing and the musical that it is, plenty of that. This is very much a spoiler-filled review, so please pay attention. And yes, I am on the toilet at the moment. Anyway, aren't I awfully wicked as well? Anyway, so yeah, the whole premise of Wicked is that it's a retconning of events from The Wizard of Oz. And yes, I do mean retconning because, original book, L. Frank Baum, that it was based on, and the film adaptation by MGM, all those things, they do very much seem like Wicked Witch of the West very much is wicked and terrible, but this movie, it directly opposes that narrative and, retcons events. Elphaba, her name, the witch, she does have a very sympathetic sort of background. Despite the fact that it's a magical world with wizards and talking animals, for some reason, the idea of a person with green skin is just absolutely abhorrent to every person who sees her. For some reason, that's how it is. Just is, I guess. And the more I think about it, is green skin really a deal breaker? Is it really intolerable? Is green skin really like no tolerance for that whatsoever? Is that really a thing? Because look, sure, prejudice is terrible and illogical and such, but you live in a world where there's talking animals and wizards. Is a green skinned person really gonna bug you that much? In fact, I'd say she's not an ugly lady, not by any means, not at all. In fact, I think the whole green thing makes her unique, and the exoticism angle you have to consider. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. People are gonna fetishize that. They're gonna fetishize what's foreign and exotic and such. And it's lady, I think you got it made. It really, in fact, it is sort of hinted in the movie. It really does come down to your self, your identity, how you feel on the inside. That shows an inner beauty and confidence and such. And she very much does look beautiful. It really all is in your mind, and in so many ways, it's how you feel about yourself, and that's a bit true to life. And I will remind you one last time, this review does have spoilers, so if you want to see it, go ahead. I don't know why it is that everyone who ever talks about the Broadway play describes it as gay or something associated with LGBT whatevers. Because, no. I mean, just because it has a rainbow in it doesn't make it gay. What are you talking about? What? I suppose there were a few characters like that in the movie, but hardly a thing. Don't know why people just keep going on about that. Anyway, I'm just saying this right now. Drama, plays, acting, it's all just kind of had that residue about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's nothing new. It's just what it is. So anyway, in the events of this movie, it is heavily implied that Elphaba's green skin is due to some sort of defect of sorts, contamination that happened during her conception. Her mother was having an affair with some other man who drinks lots of green liquid of some sort. Absinthe. I've heard of that one, the green fairy drink as it's called. And like she's likely conceived a child while exposed to absinthe. I don't know, that does sound like it'd be birth defects and such, but green skin? It's not usually the thing. And of course, she has her own stick about it. No, I did not eat grass as a child. No, I'm seasick. I am just simply green. Okay. You know, from certain angles, you look like an orc. I'm just saying. Like, I probably look funny from this angle too, like a hunchback. Yeah. Anyway. And yeah, of course, canonically, she did have a sister. You know, long before she was called the Wicked Witch of the West. There must logically be a Witch of the East. And I don't know how she got her own bad reputation as well, but canonically she did have a sister who had, you know, her own pair of silver slippers. They were only turned ruby in the film adaptation because, you know, color film, gotta do what color film does. Add some color to it. And yeah, poor little lady, she got a house dropped on her. Of course, even more of a tragedy perhaps, she was already wheelchair bound long before the house came crashing down on her. So, sucks. Really sucks. But yeah, this is something of a retconning of events of the movie, as you may recall. Changing up the motivation of the characters and such, and, you know, generally showing that Elphaba was a sympathetic character. Yeah, so, you know, as a sort of compensation, like her father, the father of Elphaba, he was not pleased about this prospect at all. Like, the baby was born green, and he can't stand that. He's like, oh no, I gotta make sure it never happens again. So he'll go doubling down on it with like a medicine that's actually worse, you know, than the disease it's trying to cure. Because, you know, the mother dies in childbirth, and the resulting child is born, you know, disabled with legs prematurely. And it's worse. And her father blames Elphaba for it. That's nasty. So she's got all that Freudian, you know, formative years sort of trauma. I've heard it said somewhere that if kids are like abused before the ages of 3, there's no fixing them. They're really gone for good. It's sad but true, I've heard. Very sad. Because, you know, every child matters. Just saying. Yeah. So, there's that. And that's, you know, unfortunate child trauma. And, of course, kids being kids, they're going to bully the weird kid who's green. It's too bad this story takes place in old-timey fantasy land and not some sort of real world, because then they'd be all like, oh, cool, you're an orc. And they're like, oh, cool, you're the Hulk. Or things like that. And like, no, they probably don't even have television in their world. Chances are. And that's the trouble with Oz. It's always kind of hard to pin down where they are in terms of time, because their technological level is all just wibbly wobbly. They've supposedly got radios and phonographs and like trains. Absolutely, they have trains. And electric lighting and all sorts of advanced modern looking buildings that are very shiny and machines of all sorts, but it's also a world with magic and wizards in it, so, who's to say what it's all about? It's weird. And I have tried listening to quite a few of the old ones on the audiobooks, like the original one. Remind me again, was she even green in the book? Like, because I've heard conflicting reports about this. Some say she was purple or something and only had one good eye, but it was the best eye of all because it was like telescopic. She could just look right out the window and say, oh, miles and miles away, someone's coming to let's besiege my castle. I can't have that. And also, the flying monkeys were sort of like only loyal to her based on a contract of sorts, a sort of like binding rule, like they can only serve her 3 times, and like that's it, that's the terms of their contract, and once that's expired they're free to go, or something like that. There was some bizarre rule, as I recall. And it's so very different from the books and the films before it. And maybe it was somewhere in the latter books that this whole retcon about the witch happened, because I could only keep up with the audiobooks so far. It has absolute historic and cultural value, the stories written by L. Frank Baum, but a lot of them are just really infantile, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it was written for children. Children who didn't have television or cartoons back in the day, so yeah. And oddly enough, despite the fact that this was well before the invention of cartoons and animation, a lot of these stories come across as silly like that. Like, there was this one, I think a spin-off sort of story written by L. Frank Baum, Queen Zixi of Ixtland or something like that. It's this, I've actually looked at this map they drew of Oz and the surrounding kingdoms. It's all this bizarre sort of nomenclature. Oz, spelled with just 2 letters, O and Z, and their neighboring country Ix, spelled with I and X. And they just keep going on from there. Like, it's a very, very strange way of constructing a language. And some of these puns and such, they only make sense in the English language, so this is made up and fake. I mean, this is the kingdom of the Mangaboos, and you will pronounce our name correctly. We are an underground civilization of vegetable people. If we desire to reproduce, we simply chop ourselves in half and let the pieces grow back in the garden. That's simply how we work. And I'm like, was this written by a psychopath? What the hell? Also, in the original novels, the wizard uses guns more often than you would imagine. Dual-wielding pistols, I should add. He actually shot up these gargoyle things that were made out of wood. He's like, oh no, I'm not having any of this. None of this happens in the movie, by the way, but I'm just saying, I'm relaying what I heard in the audiobooks. It was insanity. Like, we're gargoyles made of wood. Our wings won't actually fly unless we have hinges attached to them. And like, what were you smoking, sir, when you wrote these stories? Was it opium? Was it absinthe? What on earth? And like, this is the kingdom of the roly-poly people. When we conquer our enemies, all we have to do is just roll around down the hill and crush them with our huge round bodies, you see. We're all just like, we're living cannonballs, you see. And I'm like... Also, the fairy people invented this magic belt that grants you all sorts of wishes. Just here, have it. It can only be used by people who have willingly handed it over to another person, and you cannot steal it, of course not. It will never work if you do that. And the witch queen, she's like, tried so fucking hard. and then the neighboring kingdom, they got the magic belt, and he's like, I wish I could fly. Grows wings. Cool, I can fly. And everyone's like, what the hell is this? I wish I could grab that thing that was so very far away. Why don't you just walk over to it? No, I want to gain super stretchy powers and let my arm grab anything I can see. Drugs, man, drugs. What the hell? And yeah, all that. It's not that I don't appreciate imaginative stories and such like this, but it's all just sort of put together in a very childish sort of way. Because it was made for kids. All right. And there was this other story, The Electric Key, it was called. It was like some sort of story written by L. Frank Baum suggesting that science isn't really science. Science is magic. And in fact, scientific accomplishments are done by making magic incantation summoning circles. You see, if you used electric wires as a summoning circle, you would literally summon a demon who will do all your biddings and like give you free stuff. Like, do you think scientists invent what they invent? No. The magic genie just hands them out to you. Just madness. But supposedly L. Frank Baum wrote a story about this, and the kid who accidentally did it, just because his parents let him fool around with electric wires for some reason. Parents of the year. And he's like, I am the demon you have summoned. I shall grant you many wishes, multiple times. I'm just such a generous being. Like, here, have this magic goggles that lets you see a person's innermost truth. See if they are lying, seeing if they are honest, see if they are wise, see if they are foolish. And like, how do you quantify any of that? And I'm thinking this from a scientific perspective. How do you quantify things like that? How do you make sure how you say it's a scientific fact, but how do you make that so? I'm like, it's magic. I don't have to explain it. Yeah. Because very scientific of you, yes. And another thing I didn't like about that particular story, while it is factually true that there is no life on Mars, I find it very disappointing that you would go ahead and just shit all over someone else's fantasy like that. Like, he's like, Mr. Demon, is there life on Mars? He's like, no, there isn't. I've been there. Nothing to it. Not even a battery. Nobody lives there. There's nothing there. And I'm like, oh. And the kid looks up with disappointment. Oh, I thought there were Martians are real. I'm so disappointed. And even good old Nikola Tesla, he was trying to use a radio to contact Mars and talk to the Martians. Well, I thought he was right on it. No. And therefore, logically, the Barsoom, series, John Carter of Mars, all that stuff written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Well, you're throwing all that under the bus, thanks. I mean, it is factually true that there's no life on Mars, as we found, but that's something we've discovered in the modern centuries, and was only speculation at the time those stories were written, because it was like the 1910s. And I'm like, come on, people, don't go throwing their fantasies under the bus like that. That's not nice. But to get back to the film in question that I was supposed to be reviewing, and not criticizing the audiobooks I was listening to, you can imagine what happens. Elphaba has tremendous magic power. It's something innate to her, something just special. So maybe it actually is the magic itself that made her green. And, all this talk of her conception and such, that's all an unrelated factor. Maybe it's the magic herself that makes her green, But anyway, yeah, eventually she grows up to be, a young adult going to magic college. Great, yeah. Thanks, Harry Potter. Magic school. Another fantasy. I have nothing against Harry Potter or anything, but I find imitations of Harry Potter to be quite insipid. You remember that one cartoons show, The Ultimate Book of Spells? It was what it was called. A magic talking book who can grant any spells, and he has a mind of its own. But that's the main character in what is essentially a Harry Potter ripoff. They even have their own M word for, humans without magic powers. They're not muggles, they're called Mortys, because they're mortal. Okay. Alright. I'm just giving up at this point, like, okay, whatever, dude. Magic and fantasy, I tell you. So, yeah. The witch, she goes to magic school, or at least she would have, because it's only her wheelchair-bound sister who's attending the, education, which is not exclusively magic. But, magic is one of the many departments, apparently. Because, wizards are real. And then there's Glinda. She looks like a Barbie doll, I'm going to be honest with you. Blonde, all her accessories are pink. She's a pretty, smiling people pleaser. And she's like, how could this happen? This is a disaster. I've never had this happen before. I didn't get my way at something. And she's on the verge of fainting. Yeah, I suppose they don't get along. Although, very nice color aesthetic on both of them, I should think. Not just her whole, Barbie doll look about her, pink and blonde and such, but Elphaba's got green and black, which is a very neat color scheme. I always admired something like that. Science fiction features and such, like the Borg. I'm so getting off topic, aren't I? But yeah, there it is. So they discover she has genuine magic talent, and they're like, you know what, you are going to be the special one. No, you may think you're ugly and socially awkward and despised, but you are the special one. You're going to get our magic training, and you're going to learn how to be an amazing spellcaster, and you'll get to meet the wizard. And once you're friends with a wizard, you're going to be set for life. You're going to be everyone's friend. You're going to be popular as all hell. And I'm like, what a nice story. This soon-to-be witch, she's just this happy. She even has nerdy glasses, and she's like, "Oh, it's all coming together now. What a lovely day this is going to be." And they're like, "Okay." And of course, this is all accomplished through song and dance and such. And I'm like, "Don't touch that sand. It's called the Deadly Desert for a reason. You touch it, you're going to die. It's no good." That's the whole reason why Oz is isolated from the outside world, which I learned in the books. And there was this one thing in another book, God damn it, Dot and Trot in Maryland, written by Al Frankenbaum. That is the most insipid, childish one of them all, in my opinion. There's literally nothing. A bunch of kids go to some fantasy land that's full of candy, full of toys, full of everything they want. And even in the area that's full of lost junk stuff, you think it's going to be like a twist ending where things are a nightmare in there. And no, it's just all this junk we forgot to relocate to its proper owner. Here's an old-timey recording of some music people like, and they've all forgotten about it. Which I think was even ancient by the times this story was written, so, oh my goodness. The Marvelous Land of Mo, as it's called. Yet another kingdom with that same naming convention. 2 letters. M and O. Mo. And shockingly, another example, they use the term, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but it's called gigaboo. which is actually a mispronunciation of a word that actually was a slur for black people, according to my research. I'm just saying. Like, why are you throwing that in there, Alfred Baum? Why'd you do that? What? Okay. There's just so much. I'm just taking the shrug. I'm just saying, okay, whatever, dude. You do you. But there's this stupid story where the rival kingdom, they invented this like artificial giant. I suppose it must be a robot because they built it. It's like mechanical. It should logically be made out of metal. But as we'll soon see, it's actually just as sensitive as human flesh. Whatever it's made of, it can touch, it can feel. It's as sensitive as human flesh. And relative to the size of its body, perhaps even more sensitive than us, because you can pinch it, you can poke it, you can even tickle it, and it'll laugh. You can tickle it, and it will laugh. The War Machine. You can tickle the War Machine, and it can laugh. You can pinch the War Machine, and it will complain. And if you trip it and make it fall onto its backside, it can no longer get up of its own volition. You have to roll it over. And it's a war machine built for conquest. And then the main characters of the story simply push it up on its feet and point it in the other direction, back where it came from. And because it is unstoppable, supposedly, it went on a rampage, destroyed the kingdom, and nothing's left of it. It just walked right into the ocean and was never seen again. My God, these stories. This is why I stopped reading the stories, because this is the kind of nonsense we have to deal with. This is the kind of insipid stuff that happens in these stories, and that's why I lapsed on reading them through. I gotta tell you, Edgar Rice Burroughs was, in my opinion, a better writer. I mean, certainly he was obsessed about certain things, like he always wants super muscular supermen and people in jungle-ish attire in one way or another, beating up monsters, like, real knuckleheaded sort of stuff like that. But damn if it wasn't a good story. Tarzan was a good story. John Carter was a good story. And even the Pellucidar series, the one with the dinosaurs at the center of the earth, that was a good one. It doesn't feel insipid, quite like these stories I'm reading. My goodness. Well, to get back on the point about the movie, oh man. It was a good movie. Good music, very visually appealing. All the stuff in there was all beautiful. But what of the source material it's based on? Oh my goodness. So, then there's this other guy who walks into town. He's like this guy, he gets kicked out of schools all the time. And he's like, well, you know what? Reading is for nerds. Cool people like me like to dance. And that's what we should do. Later on tonight, let's all go to a big party and dance. That'll be what's really fun in life. And like, everyone's on board with it because he convinced the public in a jaunty song and dance right in the middle of a library. Yeah. Okay. Sure. But everyone, they all get all catty and they're like, oh my God, what is she wearing? And of course she's wearing a witch's outfit. And I'm like, oh, okay, Alpha, you do you. And like, Glinda, she's having second thoughts about this, about being so catty and rude to her because she doesn't appreciate being, roommates with this green lady. But she's got to do what she's got to do. She got to be people pleaser. She's got to be nice. She always considers herself so very nice. So she gives her a chance, and he's like, no, it's okay. Let's all do the same dance as her. We can all welcome her and be friends. And I'm like, okay. I don't think this is how that story's going to end. It's very much foreshadowed. Oh, and there's another thing. For some reason, it's almost more of a subplot, but not only are animals speaking and talking and such, but they are also being the victims of hate crimes. I should think so. I mean, that's got to be the equivalent of a hate crime. If someone smears paint all over the goat professor's chalkboard saying animals should be seen, not heard, and like, yeah, I think that's a hate crime. Like, bro. I mean, that's the point. That's why it's so shocking. But oh my goodness. And he's like, oh, and another thing later on, you will be removed from this faculty because we don't no longer approve of animals talking and such. And like, you're out of here. And also, we're going to introduce cages. Cages. They've never been invented before, but they're so cool. You lock people up in them, and then you throw away the key. And by people, I'm referring to animals, because apparently that's the discriminated against group in this world, which, as we'll soon learn, is a conspiracy directly, because they uniting the people against a common foe apparently is the modus operandi of the villains of this story. And by the way, this is only part one of the movie. This is the whole story, because it was literally written right there on the title card, part one, and ends with to be continued, so you know how it's going to go. My mom fell asleep when she was watching this movie. We were drinking weird soda that turned their tongue green when watching this movie. Contrary to previous belief, no, it is not in 3D. Don't know why they're handing out glasses, 3D glasses, if it's not 3D. Okay. Once again, I just gotta shrug and say, okay, whatever. And you know, because of all her magic powers and gifts, the I don't know, head magic sorcerer lady at the school, she's like, you know what? I'm going to talk to the wizard about you and give you a letter of recommendation. And there's like, the train pulls in, it's big and green for the Emerald City, because everything's green over there. And then they're like, okay, sure, of course, it's green. I'm like, all aboard the train. And like, oddly enough, at no point in that is anyone ever saying, well, I guess we're off to see the wizard. That reference was handed to you on a silver platter, and they didn't take it? They didn't do that? Oh, okay. Once again, I shrug and just say, okay, then. And then Glinda and Elphaba, they go to the city, and they're getting this guided tour, and explaining why the wizard is so amazing, and why his guidance just sort of, is best for the world, because he's the only one who can read the magic spell book, because it's made in a lost language that only true, powerful wizards can read. I think you can see where this is going. And the wizard's like, hey, what color should we make this road? I haven't quite decided yet. Should it be white? Should it be red? Purple? Blue? Green? Hey, you like green, right? By the way, this wizard is being played by Jeff Goldblum. Okay. So, you like green, don't you, Miss Green Lady? I bet that's your favorite color. He's like, no, it is not. I've been discriminated by this my whole life, in fact. Oh, okay, but right. No, some other color other than green. Like, yellow's a pretty color. I like it. He says it's, and they're like, okay, yellow it is. Yes, yellow. And then they're like, we're going to make this the yellow brick road, and it's all going to lead right to the city, and because it's all about me, and this is going to be great. The future is bright. Isn't it just wonderful? And all the monkeys servants are like, okay. And they're like, so, about that magic spell thing, here's the magic spell book. Could you possibly read out some of the magic spells and such? And I'm like, okay. I mean, I'll give it a try. Like, I don't think she should do that. This is like her first day, and she didn't really complete her courses at magic school. Are you sure about this? Like, I think this could work. Maybe. And he's like, Okay, the magic spellbook is moving of its own accord just by being in her presence. Okay, legit. Magic spell ooga booga and ooga booga this and Oz this and blah 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 blah, blah magic wings. And that's where the flying monkeys came from. Magic spell that caused them to grow wings, because this one monkey's like, oh, I wish I could fly. I like birds, they're very neat. And but he didn't actually say that himself. It was like the wizard was totally putting words in that guy's mouth. So you see, it's all manipulation, I think. And I'm like, what are you even doing? And I was like, excellent. Flying monkeys, they'll be the best spies of all. I'm like, wait, why do you need spies? Well, they're there for the enemies, the insurgent force. The animals you see, they're the real enemies. But why would the animals fight each other? Like, but these are the loyal ones. They're the good ones, you see. And because we keep them under duress, you see. You're like, what? What do you mean they're being forced to do that? Well, we need the enemy to be, an enemy, so all the people of the world will unite against them. And that's how you keep them under control. And that's how my evil scheme goes, because I'm actually the villain of the story. And why couldn't you use your magic spells yourself? Because I'm just not so good at it, sorry. Like, you're a fraud. And of course, to the surprise of no one, because we've all heard this story, of course, the wizard's a fraud. And they're like, I can't believe this. This society has let me down. All I wanted to do was see the animals be treated fairly and be nice. And the wizard is fake. And the monkeys are being abused. This society sucks. And oh, it does it? Well, you know what the society says? The society says you're the bad guy. You're the wicked witch. That's what you are. We're going to use our radios and PA systems and announcements and tell everyone you're a bad guy. You like it. I'm like, okay, I'm a supervillain now. And the witch is like, fuck it, I'm evil. I'm going to tear down everything. Like, I don't care. This society, they've been hating me since I was born. And I got powers. I got magic powers like you would not believe. You are in serious trouble, not me. Which is like I'm going to make this broomstick fly. I'm going to fly away. And you should totally come with me. And Glinda's like, that's a nice thought, but I don't think I can. I mean, I kind of like not being a felon. It's just how I am, And she's like, fine, on my own I am. And they're like, they go back to Glinda. You know what? You did a good thing there. You didn't succumb to the influence of the bad people. You're one of the good ones. Now, what can we do about that nasty sorceress? Ooh, if only a house would just fall on her or something. To be continued. Oh my god. And that's pretty much the story. That's pretty much it. That's a summary, a spoiler-filled review of the story. And I'm like, that is the reoccurring thing I have to do here. Just simply shrug and say, okay, whatever. That's just something I gotta do all the time. I just shrug and say, whatever. I just thought of something, though. They never elaborate on the whole water melting the witch sort of thing. Because, in the movie, you just take it at face value. Water is her kryptonite. You just throw a bucket of water on her and that'll have her melted down to nothing. And that can't possibly be the case in this movie because, she's not the least bit worried about slipping and falling into that pond filled with frogs. And she doesn't seem petrified with fear at the thought of rain. I mean, she can cry. She has tears that are liquid like anyone else. And, this is sort of why this whole trope never made much sense in the first place. Because, biologically, the human body is majority water. So how can any person be, lethally killed by water? you touch it and you die. Drowning is a real thing. That's not the same thing. And also there's the whole implication of, if you were going to perish from being touched by water, how would you even find out that information without dying in the process? So you've never had a shower or a bath at any point in your life? Well, no wonder you're green. You must be rank, stinky as fuck. That's probably the real reason why everyone despises Elphaba, because it's not about her being green, it's about the fact she never showered a day in her life. That's way more stinky than I am. Oh my goodness. It doesn't even work on a scientific level. Like, the human body is majority liquid. How does that work? Because every part of her is green. Gross. Green? That's not a deal breaker. You know what I'm saying? My goodness. I just simply shrug and say whatever. It just is what it is.
Watching, and we'll see you in the morning. M-A-G-A.